Well, hello everybody. Welcome to P.B.M. Vending. My name is Brian. And before we get started, I'd like to ask you to reach down there and hit the like button and the subscribe button. Okay, so as we have expanded our scope on our vending channel, one of the things that I told you about was the little house that our ministry bought. That house has been great, terrible, and blessed all at the same time. Let me tell you what I mean. It's been great because of the story I'm about to tell you. It's been terrible because of the tenant that I got in there. But it's been great because God has provided a way so that I'm not getting soaked. It's all great. And I have here with me the original contract for buying this house. Now let me tell you how this whole thing started. I had been in prayer. Well, let me back up a little bit. A while back, when our ministry started saving money, and I started saving money, God had showed me that whatever I should do with the ministry money, I should do with my money. Do it with ministry money first to prove that it's blessed, and then follow up with my money. That way, it will be blessed. Right? Okay. So we opened a money market account or a mutual fund account for ministry. Then I opened one for our account. And so through the years, we've saved some money. So one day in prayer, God showed me that we need to buy a little house. And actually, it was a life event that happened, because obviously I wasn't listening. And something happened in my personal life that made me realize I needed to own a house. And I'll tell you what it is. I work at an apartment complex, and part of my salary is a free apartment. So I haven't paid rent in 15 years. Or mortgage payment or anything. So we've been able to save some money. And the older I get, the more I realize that if God decides to keep me around long enough, I'm going to need a place to live. Because my job is done by people half my age. And so obviously at some point I'm not going to be able to do this job. So I'm going to need a place to land. So we went out and bought a little house. Now, before we bought it, I was just out running around one day looking at properties that I had found on Facebook Marketplace. And I saw this house, and we went in. I pulled in the driveway, and it was okay. It was okay. And I backed out of the driveway, and I decided I would probably call the realtor. And as I was pulling across, the house across the street was for sale, and I recognized the guy's name on the sign. So I pulled in the driveway, and I called the number on the for sale sign, and I said, "Is this so-and-so that used to work for an insurance company that I used to work for?" And he said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Well, this is Brian, and I'm sitting in the driveway at your house for sale on thus and such a street. I'd like to look in it." So he said, "Okay, fine, give me an hour and I'll be there." So in an hour, we went in the house. Okay, years ago, I used to be in the rental business, and I decided that if I got back in, I was not going to pay the same. I was not saved back then, and frankly, I was a slumlord, okay? And I hated it, and I don't want to ever do that or be that again. I want to be I want to be of God, by God, and for God. No matter what I do. And if it's going to be rental, then same thing. So anyway, I looked at it, made an offer on the spot, and went home, prayed about it, and God said, absolutely, you're going to need 2,000 and 2,000. And I first didn't know what that meant. Then I looked at the account and realized he meant take 4,000 out. You're going to put 2,000 down, and you're going to use 2,000 to get started in the account. So I said, okay. Actually, I knew that beforehand. So I got the money, put it in the checking account, made the offer, put down a down payment, and as I said, I have the contract right here. The price that we had agreed to was $51,500. Okay. Now, as we go through this whole deal, let me give you just a little bit of context. Back in the day when I was not saved, I was great at making the deal. Okay, that was what I did. The follow-up and the day-to-day I was terrible at. And by the way, I am still terrible at it. I'm still learning. But anyway. So I made an offer, and my realtor friend gave me some ideas. And I said, okay, that's fine. Whatever you think. So we wrote up the contract. It was accepted. I mean, there was a little bit of back and forth. I mean, he had a bunch of junk in the backyard I wanted gone. But I mean, this house was completely redone on the inside. I mean, it needed carpet. But the appliances were new, the roof was new, the windows were new, the siding had been painted. And the paint job was new. I mean, it was great. It was a ready to move into house. And the area was not bad. Okay, it was a nice little house, starter home in a decent little area. And so, the offer's accepted. And now my schedule is such that I didn't have a lot of time. So my realtor said, call this banker and he'll take your application over the phone. And I was like, say what? Because years ago when I was in the business, I mean, I knew that I was going to have to get my income tax together and pay stubs, and I mean, the documentation was going to be mind-numbing. So I called the banker on Monday morning, and in 15 minutes we were done. And he said, I'm going to need two pay stubs from both jobs. I'm going to need your income tax from last year, and I think that was all I needed. And then he called me back and he said, wow, your credit rating's outstanding. It's the first I knew about it. I didn't know. I didn't pay attention to that stuff. But I guess I had a really good credit rating. So we went, and by the way, while we're talking about credit rating, I did a video not too long ago. Remember I said my credit rating was in the mid 700s, and then I got my report from Empyrean and I was like 729. Well, I found this sheet, and this came from the bank. Okay, and I want you to see this. Okay, it lists all 3 credit reporting agencies and the ratings for each one. Now, I wrote them down there because each credit reporting agency took up a full sheet of paper, and I just condensed it down. And the one that I quoted that was 729, 8 months ago was 770. Now, why did it take a hit? Because in less than 12 months, I got the house loan, I had to get a car loan, and I got 4 credit cards So that was 5 in less than 12 months. And Equifax at that time was 749, and TransUnion was 732. Mid 700s, like I said. So anyway, the application is taken. And now one of the things that I had put in the contract was that the sale of the house was dependent on me getting an FHA contract or an FHA loan. Why did I do that? Because I knew from years before that for an FHA loan you need 3.5% down. That works out to close to $2,000, and I don't, $1,700 maybe, I don't know, whatever the number is. And when I'm talking to the banker filling out the application, he says, okay, so here's another God thing. He says, Brian, do you think you could come up with a little bit of money, a little bit extra money? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, we need at least $2,000. I said, well, I think I could probably do that. Why? And he says, well, I ran your numbers and you barely qualify, but you do qualify for a $6,000 grant. Not loan, not second mortgage, grant. Now remember, the cost of this house is $51,500. And so that works out to, and I don't know exactly, I haven't done math, but roughly 12% of my purchase price they're going to give me in cash. What? It gets better. And I said, okay, all right. So I come up with $2,000 and I had to go through this rigmarole, and anyway, I got $6,000. Now along the process, we had set up an appraisal. Okay, let me go back to years before. Years before, and I had bought a lot of properties, okay? And without exception, every transaction I ever saw, whether it was me or another purchaser, the appraisal always came in at what the sales price was. If the deal was $1.2 million, the appraisal came in at $1.2 million. If the purchase price was $100,000, it came in at $100,000 without fail. That was just the way that it did. All right, because an appraisal. By the way, my minor and my major was business. My minor was real estate. I've done appraisals. Okay, an appraisal is nothing more than an opinion backed up by some verifiable facts. They call them comps. But you can make a comp say, you can make a comp sit up and bark if you want to. You can make it say whatever it is you want to, and they used to. Anyway, so I get a call from my realtor one day, and he says, hey Brian, the appraisal came in and it did not come in at the sales price. And I thought, oh gosh, here we go. He said it came in $1,500 under. I said, what are you saying? He said it came in at $50,000, which means we're going to have to lower the price by $1,500. And I said, okay, but is the seller going to be okay with that? He was. Okay. So, let me sum up, okay? The original deal was $51,500. I put $2,000 down. I'm financing $49,500. Plus closing costs, okay? So, also one of the things that I had asked for was a $500 carpet allowance because it needed carpet. So now we're getting ready to close, and here's where we are. $50,000 purchase price, okay? $8,000 down. My 2 plus 6 equals 8 plus closing cost. I should have financed 50 or 49.5. I ended up financing 44.6. Unbelievable. Okay? Now, the first tenant that I rented to was a lovely, lovely girl. Very kind. She was a single mom, made lots of money, loved the house, but the neighbor was a jerk and scared her off. So then I had to rent to somebody else, and he ended up being a jerk and not paying the rent. Well, it just so happened that the month that he stopped paying rent, coronavirus hit, and the bank offered forbearance on the loan. Now it's only for 2 months, but I think it'll be extended because our governor is being unreasonable. But in this time, the reason they offered forbearance is because you can't kick anybody out. In fact, the courts aren't even open to give evictions. So he's been living in that house rent-free now for 2 months. But the good news is God offered me a way out. So, that deal, and I didn't do none of that deal was mine. I had nothing to do with the $6,000. I had nothing to do with the $1,500. I had nothing to do with the purchase price. I had nothing to do with any of it. All I did was go along for the ride. Now, why do I tell you this story? For several reasons. Number one, it's part of our ministry, and it's part of what motivates this ministry to move. Most people would have backed out or done different things or not just led. I mean, as a general rule, I'm a type A personality, but I realized right from the beginning this house was from God. And by the way, the realtor, and I didn't know this, but we used to work together at the insurance company, and he said, not then, but as we were going through this process, he said, Brian, you're the first person that I knew when I got here, and I always liked you. So I'm very happy to sell you this house. I had no idea. So 2 people of God get together, and God puts together a deal, puts money in his pocket, puts a house in God's pocket, and takes care of the financing and the deal. And that's how this ministry likes to roll. And I could tell you many, many stories of how God does that. I mean, I don't know how God does it, but I know that he does do it. As an example, we have no known income for our ministry, but still we ended up with enough money to buy a little rental house. And you know, one little thing here, and then we'll be done. Whenever I think about this, I always think of the story of the talents in the Bible. Remember when Jesus tells the parable of the landowner that gives 3 of his slaves X amount of dollars and goes away, and when he comes back, the first one says, I knew you were a hard master and I worked really hard. Here's 10 times the money you gave me. And Jesus says, well done, good and faithful servant. You were good with the little, come share in my plenty. Second guy comes in, same deal. Different percentages, but he gives him 3 times, I believe. The third guy comes in, and the money's covered with dirt. And Jesus looks at him, and the guy says, I knew you were a hard master, and I didn't want to risk any of it. So I buried the money in the backyard, and here's your money back. And Jesus said, you wicked servant, the least you could have done is put it in the bank so I could have earned interest. Okay? How our ministry makes money? I don't know. I mean, over the years we've developed a couple of ways. Our vending machines are one, the rental property is one. Let's face it. But I've never been afraid to take a risk because I know that God is in charge. I don't take the risk. I try to listen, I try to pray, I try to do what God says. For me to run a vending business with my schedule is absolutely laughable. And if you haven't seen some of our first videos where I explain my schedule, you should go watch those. But we're doing fine. I mean, we're not knocking it out of the ballpark, but we're putting ourselves in a position to succeed, and that's all I can ask for. Well, that's the story of the little rental house for P.B.M. Vending. And I pray that the ministry or the business that you have is blessed by God, and that you have as much success as you want and you can handle. So you guys go out and have a great, great business time with your vending. And I pray that God blesses you like He has blessed our ministry. Happy vending, guys.